Recording in progress.
Welcome, everybody, in particular, COSATU, who we've just seen in the joint SECOA meeting. We're looking at the Revenue Laws Amendment Bill. According to our secretary, we also got a submission from a CISA, and I've looked at it. It's making quite sweeping, well, not sweeping, but quite severe criticisms of the bill. They would have been in the NA and presented the same things, but no doubt National Treasury will brief us on this. Over then to COSATU. As you're the only person making any submissions, Matthew, you can have 1.5 hours. But because you're a buddy of ours, we'll plead with you to reduce it to 15 minutes. Thank you.
Chair, I think it should be a criminal offense to allow me to speak for 1.5 hours. That would be against, I suspect, the Geneva Convention on Human Rights. That would be... Even for the Vanguard Party, I think that would be cruel and inhumane punishment.
Okay, over to you, my friend.
No, Chair. Yeah, I mean, so we're always appreciative of giving us a chance to say our views. I mean, we do think all these processes are important, so it is good to raise issues, and I think also just to help empower members with the issues, etc., etc. So, Chair, in a nutshell, we support the Revenue Laws Amendment Bill. We have no proposed amendments to it. This has been a long journey for COSATU with engagements with our colleagues in Treasury, good engagements. And of course, both the finance committees in Parliament have also done a huge amount of work and lots of engagements on this since 2020. And so, the Revenue Laws Bill, Chair, really it's a product of extensive engagements between all of ourselves, Treasury, Parliament, COSATU, the industry. It's a package of reforms that's going to give relief to millions of workers who are really struggling. And I think also, Chair, it's a sober response to filling existing inflexibilities within the current pension laws. So we really do look forward to them coming to effect on 1 September 2024. And I can't emphasize how many workers are waiting for this relief, Chair. I'm sure members might also get lots of questions, but definitely in our own past, without some worker contacting COSATU to say, when is this relief coming? So, Chair, we welcome the Revenue Laws Amendment Bill and also the Pension Fund Amendment Bill, which is currently before the Standing Committee of Finance, which we would hope would come to the Select Committee, I guess, by the end of this month, hopefully. We have no proposed amendments to the Revenue Laws Amendment Bill. We think it's fine. We've accepted the compromises. And then with regards to the PFA bill, which will come to the Select Committee later, we do believe there is one critical amendment that is needed to it, just to ensure that all pension funds are covered by it. But Chair, we think what really the essence of our message is that these bills are critical. They're going to give relief to millions of workers. And our simple message is for the Select Committee and the NCOP to expedite the bill. We think, Chair, to be a travesty, without putting too many adjectives, but it really would be a travesty if these bills were not passed by the 6th Parliament. It would really be a huge blow to workers who have, I can't emphasize how much they're looking forward to these bills coming to effect. And of course, industry too also needs a sense of surety as well, so they can also undertake their necessary administrative processes, which are significant, but are manageable, are doable. So we've had lots of engagement on this thing as a collective of government and Parliament across party lines. and COSATU in the industry. And I think we're very pleased that it's not often we find this large amount of consensus between government, business, and labor across party lines. And I think we have been really heartened. We've had a lot of hard discussions. We've sworn at each other and fought each other. But I think by and large, we're heartened by the support we've received, including from members of both committees, including, I think, especially both chairpersons, Joe Mashungai, yourself, Chair, and I think even Honorable Dr. George also has been a valuable ally in this journey. So in essence, Chair, we support the two-part reforms. We think it's a good compromise. It's a sober compromise. Workers would be allowed a limited access to the pension funds without having to resign, so that's good. They would not need to cash out the entire pension funds if they just needed some relief. On the 1st of September this year, workers would be able to get 10% up to 30,000 Rand from existing savings. We had wanted it to be more, to be 50,000 Rand, but we've accepted the need to compromise and to move on if you want to achieve the 1st of September 2024 implementation date, which for us is sacrosanct. We can't delay any further. It's been a long journey. And I think with the amendment we had mentioned about the PFA bill was that simply they needed to, in the agreement, to simply insert additional clauses in the PFA, not the revenue laws bill, but the PFA bill, just to include the GPF, Telkom, Transnet, pension funds as well. So, Chair, I think we do welcome the agreement that the bill would be binding upon all pension funds and all workers would be entitled to immediate leave and also entitled to the future savings pot. And workers who are retrenched would also be able to access the savings pot. That must still be dealt with in a supplementary bill, but I think we have consensus in that regard. Chair, we think that this bill, it'll be beneficial to all parties. One, workers wouldn't need to resign to get unlimited access. We would be preserving 2/3 of future savings for retirement and for retrenchment, which is a big shift because if we're honest here right now, when workers change their jobs, they cash out. When workers are drowning in debt, they cash out. And the consequence is, yes, it's immediate relief, but then the next day you're unemployed and you have no pension left. You're no longer contributing. And when you reach retirement, there's not enough to retire with. So many workers have felt that the amount of the 30,000 Rand, etc., is too little. And sure, they have a point, they're right. But we accept the need for a balanced approach. In essence, the relief will never be enough to settle a bond or a car loan in most instances, but it'll be equivalent, both immediate relief and the annual relief would be equivalent to a 13th check. And a 13th check can plug a lot of financial holes. It can pay credit card, medical bills, mashonisa debt, etc., fix home repairs, etc. And that can give relief. And over time, that's going to help plug a lot of holes, but still preserve enough for retirement and to continue to remain employed. Which we also think is going to give a bit of a stimulatory effect to the economy on September when many workers would go and cash out that 30,000 Rand cap. And that, of course, that will be beneficial to the economy, give relief to workers. But of course, the fiscus also, as an institution which collects the taxes for everything under the sun, would also benefit as well. So, Chair, our proposals with regards to the Revenue Laws Amendment Bill is that we accept it in full. Even when we had areas we're not thrilled about, but we accept it. And our simple plea for the Select Committee is to support the bill, to adopt it, and to expedite its passage by the NCOP. And similarly, Chair, when the PFA bill comes to the Select Committee, I would assume end of March, beginning of April, to gallop through it. The Standing Committee of Finance, we think, would have concluded all the necessary amendments, etc. And I think, again, that when the members rise for the elections, that this should be done. So we would be very wary if these bills weren't passed, or if we passed it without and excluded some workers. That would divide workers, it would crush their hopes. We also feel that if we didn't pass the bills, Chair, without being alarmist, not engage in scaremongering tactics, etc., but we know many workers would just simply choose to resign. They are waiting for this relief. They know it's not perfect, but they do appreciate the relief. So I think for us, just to get all of our ducks in a row, conclude everything as Parliament, let's get done. And I think, Chair, for us, the sacrosanct cast in stone issue has to be the implementation date of 1 September this year. We must stick to it. We know there's a lot of work that needs to be done. It's a lot of time pressure for Parliament, for the Select Committee. There's pressure for the President to sign, etc. And pension funds have got significant investment portfolio shifts and other administrative work, but we think it can be done. and we need to stick to this September deadline at all costs. We already have received a lot of flack for shifting from March 2024 to September, and of course, workers had hoped for this thing even to come into effect last year. But nonetheless, we do appreciate these are complicated issues, and let's just get done with them. So yeah, I think I made the point about the 2024 deadline. It also means that once Parliament gets passed, the President must sign. Treasury also has to do its work in terms of promulgations, regulations, etc. SARS has indicated they will be ready to do their tax adjustment issues. We don't think that's too complicated. We do appreciate the pension funds have got a fair amount of work to do in terms of adjusting their pension fund rules with the FFCA, and also to ensure the portfolio has sufficient liquidity, the necessary consumer and education work, putting in place administrative support for the processing. That's why we're also keen that Parliament is able to process things as soon as reasonably possible, but at least before the elections, so we give as much time as possible for the industry, for Treasury, etc., to get done. But it can be done, Chair. We think the fact we have consensus between government, Parliament, industry, ourselves, it can be done. Chair, we do have a kind of an understanding with colleagues in Treasury, and we do appreciate they've really worked generally with us. It's not often as COSATU we will praise Treasury, but on this bill we do praise them. We do need to resolve one other issue, the retrenchment issue. We think we should also have a discussion about, can workers take education loans from the pension funds like they can do with home loans? So we've had these discussions. The retrenchment issue is the most critical one. So we think we've got to understand with Treasury that let's have these discussions as soon as Parliament has done these two bills, which means we will need to have the discussion around May, June, July. And then when the TLABs come to Parliament in August, the issue of the retrenchment provision should be included so that Parliament could also conclude its work by November, December this year, and of course they could come into effect in March next year. So that's critical, Chair, because we have this gap of this year to implement it, but by next year, when workers might be retrenched in future, the existing retrenchment cover should be retained. So it wouldn't include the existing resignation issues for future savings, but the retrenchment when a worker loses his job through no fault of their own, they should be assisted. So, Chair, in conclusion, I know I've repeated many issues, off by heart, but I think in essence, Chair, we're very pleased with the bill, with the two-part regime, the RLA and the pending PFA bills. We really want to appreciate the welcome engagement we've had with yourselves, with Treasury, with industry. We have consensus, and I think simply let's get done for 1st September. Yeah, so Chair, we just can't afford delays, and we can't afford to disappoint workers, but we think this can be done and it has to be done. So let me stop, Chair, I've galloped a little bit because I know this is very familiar territory for members, and I didn't want to subject them to any further cruel torture listening to myself going on. But yeah, thanks very much, Chairperson.
Listening to yourself, I know what that means. It's far worse with me. I'm so bored listening to myself. Okay, that said, comments. Now, ASISA's sent us quite a few amendments, National Treasury. And obviously we can't proceed, well, we won't be able to finish this bill until you reply to each of them. I don't know if you can do it today, but you can give us an overall thrust. In the meanwhile, colleagues, let's hear from you. Any hands up? Dennis, needless to say, anybody else? Nope. Right, go for it, Dennis. You have an hour.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'll use 59 minutes of that. Yeah, thanks to Matthew and COSATU for always being present and for adding to the discussion. I think that I'm going to use this opportunity again, not necessarily to question what Matthew has brought out, but to again voice my displeasure at the lack of participation in the public participation process, Chair. And I think that, this two-part retirement system was initially designed as a response to COVID when we lost 2 million jobs in South Africa. And the fact is that people were not going to be able to make it to use their pension funds because they couldn't afford to put food on their tables. So I think the fact that we're only processing the bill now is perhaps a bit of an indictment on our legislative processes. But that's for us to reflect on and talk about as we move forward. However, I do think that the outcry from big business in the media and so on about the fact that this thing has been landed on them and they haven't had enough time to process it and so on is noted, and I think that they're quite correct to say that there are other consequential legislative amendments which are required to give this bill effect. But realistically, they should be telling us that as Parliament, because we're the guys that pass the legislation, and we're the guys that end up with expectations and creating expectations around our electorate. And the time for big business to sit in cozy rooms with the executive and make internal arrangements is long gone. And big business needs to engage with us as parliamentarians to also empower us to do our work so that we can understand things from their perspective as well. And it's no point to criticize MPs for not understanding the intricacies of the insurance environment. I was in banking, I wasn't in insurance. Other MPs haven't had the same advantages that I've had. So it is a pity for me that we have COSATU here presenting and nobody else. And it is a sad indictment on big business, organized business in the country. And I do think that we could have had a much richer engagement, a much deeper engagement, which would have taken us into a better position so that this law could have been implemented effectively and to the benefit of all. Instead, we sit taking shots at each other in the media, and I don't think that's constructive. So, Chair, thank you, COSATU. I think that I look forward to the report, and we can adopt the report when it comes forward. Thank you.
So, firstly, yeah, I'm not happy either. Finally, it reflects on the chairperson of the committee when you have poor public participation. But as I've repeatedly said, unless the bill is 76, maybe people feel I can't think what's going through their head. But maybe they think it's not worth coming. Probably it's also skepticism about our willingness and preparedness to make changes, especially on the eve of an election, to bills. But I don't think there were many submissions on the NA side either. So perhaps, National Treasurer, the first question would be, I've forgotten, how many submissions did you get? Oh, you said 8, is that right? Nkululeko found out. But not all of them made written submissions. Secondly, I agree with Dennis, actually. I also wondered, now it seems to me, Treasury, that this bill is slightly more acceptable than the one that's currently before the NA on the Pension Fund Amendment Bill. It's on that one that public hearings were tougher and people are more critical than I remember through the media and from what we heard from you about the this bill through the NA process. And I entirely agree with what Dennis is saying, that this thing of business engaging with executive only in cozy chat rooms or whatever you were saying, chats in closed boardrooms or something like that, I also agree with him, though they do appear before our committee. But you're right, if they're so unhappy, why haven't they come here? Or even more importantly, since it's not a Section 76 bill, why didn't they go to the NA? Now, I'm worried about the CISA, you see. I thought that the CISA will say one or two things, but they've got a very long submission. And that's what's worrying me. So I actually, in discussion with Nkululeko, sort of thought, we'll go through the bill now, but we're not taking any policy positions unless we hear fully from National Treasury what their reply is to a CISA. We can't take anything. We have to look at the CISA's thing. We can do it over the weekend. To alert you, because yesterday's meeting failed, and we weren't the only committee, I think the plenary on the NA side, I don't know if Sifiso Buthelezi said they had trouble yesterday too. Can't remember whether he went to plenary or the morning meetings they might have had. So anyway, look, if you look at the program you'll be getting, or I've already just got, we have said we'll have that procurement thing, public hearings in the morning, And then after the House rises, we will look at this bill. The expectation was we'll more or less be ready to vote on Wednesday. But now the CISA's made all these submissions, and we can't just lurch ahead or stream ahead. So let's hear from National first. Matthew, do you want to say any in response to your big Mbongi fan there, Mr. Ryder? I am going to report you to the General Secretary of COSATU, right? Because you have the best relationship any parliamentary representative of COSATU, any COSATU representative has had with the DA. It is very, very worrying. I think Willie will also complain to his chief whip about the way Dennis behaves towards you. So we will read in the city press what you have to say. Okay, over to you then, Matthew.
No, thanks, Chair. And look, as part of reasserting my revolutionary credentials, we did issue 2 statements this week thanking the DA for being an agent of Econopoly Capital. And they issued a statement.
Okay, good.
And they issued a statement lamenting that we are some sort of relic from 1933 in the Soviet Union. So I think we've restored the equilibrium. But we do also appreciate that Honorable Dr. George was more progressive than the Vanguard Party and the ANC by drafting the first bill in 2020. And in fact, Chair, we felt... We felt Dr. George
I withdraw my facetious comment.
We had to ask Dr. George to be less radical, Chair, not to displace...
George, Leon! Somebody must have got him on the wrong side of the bed. Leon, oh God. Yeah. Dennis is far more sober. Anyway.
But Chair, look, I mean, to be fair to members of Parliament, we do see value in the public participation processes. If we looked at the previous Parliament, I mean, in the finance committees, and I know I'm preaching to the converted here, but there's a lot of good discussion we had got across party lines, whether it's on the sugar tax, the carbon tax, the PIC, even other committees too. Like we had managed to assist with a previous ACGP member, Sherilyn Dudley, to amend the UIF Acts to provide for paternity leave. So there is value. We know it's not a sprint, it's a marathon, I think. That's why we try to, without irritating members, we try to look at all bills and say, you know, what can we do to assist? But we do appreciate members' frustrations. Chair, I think, you know, Honorable Ryder is right about the 4-year journey. We've got a lot of flack as COSATU, correctly so, from members who said, why does it take so long? We can explain it takes about 5 years for bills we pass on average. Joseph doesn't always appreciate that, correctly so, because the pressures are today and tomorrow. Half a decade journey doesn't really give comfort. But we also do appreciate, and we've seen in these processes, in these bills, the dangers of rushing it, the unintended consequences. But yes, we'd have loved it to have been a bit further, faster, and we've, you know, at times had to be a little bit blunt with our colleagues in Treasury. But nonetheless, Chair, it's fine. When we're here, we have consensus, we have the bills in Parliament. We've got a deadline in this, implementation date that there's consensus around. So I think us is just about getting done, and we appreciate there's huge pressures on members of Parliament, especially the NCP to get so many things done before rising. Chair, you know, on the issue of business complaints, look, we were a little bit anxious, to be honest with you. You know, are we tinkering too much with the pension funds? And we got a bit of comfort, you know, 2022 when Alexander Forbes, not me becoming a spokesperson for or being too presumptuous, but Alexander Forbes, Old Mutual, Sanlam, all came out publicly and said, no, they support these reforms. They think it's a fair balance. It addresses the current inflexibility of the law, the current challenges workers face, and the impacts they have upon pension funds. So I think, Chair, also to be fair to Parliament, you know, this is a matter Parliament has had probably about a dozen hearings on since 2020, so it's not a new matter. It's been a lot of discussion in both houses. Treasury's done a lot of work. I know Treasury's done a lot of work, engaged with industry too. They've done a lot of work with ourselves as Labour. I don't think a month would have passed without us meeting Treasury. Even over the Christmas holidays, we would have worked with the colleagues in Treasury. So this is not a surprise. There's been a lot of engagement on it. I think it's also important, Chair, to make the point to pension funds that this is workers' monies. This is a fair compromise. It's a win-win compromise which will assist industry in terms of the disruption where people cash out all the time, but also gives relief to workers. It's a win-win compromise. And we've been heartened, Chair, in the Standing Committee of Finance, when the discussions in November, December, when industry publicly came out and said they are fine, all they want is Parliament to get done. Yes, they have some issues, fine, no problem. But they've all agreed for Parliament to get done so they can work towards the implementation date of September. And I think, Chair, also why we're so keen for the two houses to get done, the NCP on the RLA bill and both houses on the PFA bill, is that the presidency can't move unless those are done by April. Chair, we do appreciate that we've had, good consensus and support. Doesn't mean we've got everything we wanted. At times, there are things we're not happy with the Treasury ultimately decided, or Parliament ultimately decided, but we've all agreed at some stage you need to make compromises. At some stage you have to accept and move on. But I think on the main fundamental issues, whether it's between ourselves and Treasury, whether it's between the ANC and the DA and other parties, and I think largely industry as a whole, there has been consensus. Chair, I think maybe the last point that you raised about the PFA bill, without me, daring to speak on behalf of ASISA or IRFA, and Treasury colleagues here would know better than me on the technicalities. But in the Standing Committee of Finance hearings on the PFA bill on Tuesday this week, I think what IRFA and ASISA were raising were some issues about, and I think they were fine, about like divorce, the separation of assets, etc., the synchronization between the bill and the Divorce Acts and so forth. And I think those are largely, inoffensive. I think they're largely common sense. So we would say to the Standing Committee of Finance, amend what needs to be amended now, fine. If there's other stuff which needs more work, let's do that in a supplementary bill. But I think the bottom line is let's make sure both bills are passed before Parliament rises, because without that, then September this year is gone. And then that would be a devastating blow to workers. So I think we're 99% there, Chair. It's the final push. But I think from our side, whatever issues are raised, they can be addressed. But I think on the revenue bill, then I'll stop talking, Chair. The revenue laws bill, I think as far as workers and Standing Committee of Finance did make substantial amendments to it, and it's ready to go. And I think our plea, without undermining the role of the Select Committee and the NZP, without getting in trouble with the constitutional requirements, but is to conclude it to pass in the sitting, Chair. But yeah, thanks very much, Chair.
No, I think we must pass this bill before the elections, because you might get fired, right? And Dennis feels that if you get fired, there'll be a dragon representing COSATU next time that'll breathe fire on this committee. So out of friendship, we might... Oh, before somebody misunderstands me, I'm obviously being silly Billy-ish, okay? I'm not serious. But Matthew, I don't think any party, unlike on the public procurement bill, is saying no to finishing this bill before the elections. The two related bills, right? And that's my sense. And unless something unforeseen happens, we will do it. I know you raised it many times, but at this stage, unless I don't see certain things, it's very likely we'll pass this bill. So that's not the issue, but we have to do our jobs in the meanwhile. There's no rubber stamping here, never mind what others think. Okay, having said that, it's now time for Treasury to come back, firstly on what COSATU said, though there's very little to respond to. But then also, can you tell us what's going on with the ASISA? Didn't they make all these submissions they currently have to us, to the NA committee? And why were they rejected? Who's speaking on behalf of Treasury?
Thank you, Chair.
Right. Yeah.
Good morning to the members as well. The issue, I'll start with the issue that relates to the COSATU. Let me then say that on the issue of dismissal and the retrenchment that they've submitted, we note that comments and then we're going to engage later, immediately after we actually have passed this two-pot retirement one. And then on this ASISA submission, ASISA did submit these comments. We did look at them, and most of all, including all of the 11 points, so to say, on the ASISA submissions, they relate to drafting. And most of that work has been done because we published on the 21st of February, the 2024 RLAP. So all of the changes that ASISA possibly has been raising, and to the extent as well on their first letter, they actually wrote there, I think because there was a letter and there was a cover letter. they did mention that most of the points that they are raising have been catered for in the 2024 RLAP. So we actually also look at that, and we said most of them are already covered currently. And then there were two issues as well. The other issue in relation to the directives as well, we also catered for the amendment for the directives in the 2024 RLAP. So I thank you. I think that's a short summary from us at the moment, Chair.
You know, I don't quite follow. I'm a bit confused now, right? Perhaps you can explain. So you're saying that every amendment here that CISA proposed has already been addressed?
Yes.
So why are they making the submission again to us? I mean, what's the point?
I may not be too sure, Chair, but maybe just to flag as well, maybe some of the issues, more especially the directive one, which is quite important for them to make sure that at least there is a smooth implementation of this two-pot system. I think they were trying to stress that part, I will imagine.
Yes, all right. Now in Nkululeko, can you contact them and find out what is it they want us to do if all these amendments they have now referred to us have already been adopted? If need be, get Asisa to phone me. Will you do that in Nkululeko?
Yes, Chair, we'll do so.
Preferably today. I know you'll do it, but certainly by Monday morning, because that shapes how we approach the Tuesday evening meeting. I've never come across this before since joining the NCOP. I don't think any one of us is that unless the amendments have been rejected, nobody ever sends it back to us. I don't know what the point is, and I'm still confused, but there it is. It's settled. In which case, we can merrily go to the bill and ensure that our friend there, Comrade Matthew, doesn't get fired, right? So, can we put that into the bill, comrades? We passed this bill. Can you put, COSATU shall not fire Stu Parks, because he took him 5 years to persuade us in Parliament to pass this bill. Matthew, are you happy with that amendment?
It's a very revolutionary amendment, Chairperson.
Right, Treasury, don't let the side down, Treasury. Ntasla, are you happy with that amendment?
Yes, Chair, I just wanted to correct something, Chair. The 2024 RLAP has not been adopted yet, Chair. We just issued it as a draft. So it's still going to come back to you.
Okay. All right. Now listen, my friend, I was being silly, right? As you know, it's in my DNA. Now, colleagues, I think we should look at the bill, right? And I promise no more silly Billy comments from me. Okay. All right, let's go for it. And Dikeledi Mashlangu is responsible to shut me down because Nkululeko feels awkward about doing it if I say something stupid. All right. Okay. Right. Fine. Let's go for it. I've got the bill here too. PDF. Okay. Take us through the bill clause by clause, please. Somebody from Asisa is here. I don't know why they don't come in and why they... Yes, can you answer that question, Adri? Can we deal with Asisa first? Why have you sent us this thing? If it's all accepted. Adri, is that how I say your name? Adri.
Good morning. Yes.
Oh, yeah, yes.
Good morning. It was very difficult for us to decide how to position our comments. We made the submission in November last year to Treasury already, but it is a difficult situation because there's already a new draft bill that would fix the technical errors in the bill that is currently in Parliament. So it is an unusual process for us. That is why we decided to approach it as we did, because the deadline for comments on the 2024 draft RLAP is on the 28th of March, and we're in the middle of putting together our comments on that. That is the reason why we didn't make a verbal presentation, but just sent you our comments. We have discussed it with Treasury, and we are busy analyzing in November last year already, but we're busy analyzing the new draft bill to see how it's been incorporated.
Okay, can you answer a specific question? those amendments that are before us, right? I was going to plow through them over the weekend. I'm very glad you're here, because I really would have got very frustrated given all the pressures we have, not least an election campaign, to read something that's already outdated. So in other words, what is the point? I don't follow. What is there in your current submissions that you would like the NCOP Select Committee on Finance to consider to amend the bill as it is before us right now? What?
As I said, we're in the process of analyzing that. We should have a good idea by Tuesday, whether there are still remaining concerns. It seems as if most, or if not the majority, by far the majority of all, could be addressed, but it's just the timing was very difficult between the NCOP hearings and looking at the 2024 bill to see what has been dealt with or not. So we have a draft submission ready, but we haven't completed it yet. It's just the timing is very tight.
All right, can I ask you a question? Can you submit it by 3 p.m. on Tuesday and then appear before this committee if there is anything further you want to raise with us that you think has not been addressed by the bill in its present form before the NCOP? That's fair.
That's fair.
And you are a CISA. I've dealt with a CISA before. You're highly sophisticated. You're hardly a small like NGO somewhere. You're a very strong organization. I interacted with your representative before, a very strong woman. I forgot her name.
Rose? Rose is also here?
Rose. Yeah,
Rose is also here.
Yeah, and we took very seriously what you said, but we don't buy this thing with due respect unless you motivate that you can't give us by 3 p.m. Our meeting will be after the House rises. Unfortunately, we're in the hands of the NCOP and certain parties that raise constant objections on the most trivial grounds. So even if the committee says to you, Parliament rises at 6, we're in the hand of the gods, so to speak, these days, right? It very rarely does because of the unnecessary bickering. Okay, it's on the eve of an election. It's a normal thing. In our country, it's slightly more than normal, but there we are. Fine, we're giving you till 3 p.m. Is that agreeable? If you want an extension of time, give us a motivation. If you want an extension of time and say you still don't have the time, you know, but I ain't going to read this thing, okay? I really am not, because I mean, really, what's the point, right? I will only read your submission and we won't take any decisions on Tuesday evening. We will have to defer the rest of the process till Wednesday. Fine, we're giving it till then. Thank you very much. Right, in the meanwhile, can you take us through clause by clause? Yeah. You're not going to read the bill. You're just going to give us an overview of what the issue is and how it addresses the policy issues that are before us. And members, we sent the bill, well, not we, it's in Nkululeko himself, obviously. We sent the bill to you this morning again. So let's go through it, colleagues. And members, please come in. There's no need for you to put your hand up because it's a tiresome thing, right? Checking with just say chairperson and come in, or whatever you want to call me. Right? We don't need a discussion about this. Can we go down? Who's handling the screen? Yeah. And you have it on your computers and so on, right? Let's go for it, mate.
Chair.
Yep.
Oh, well, okay. The clause 1, Chair, deals with the number of things. Firstly, it's the inclusion of the definition of a savings withdrawal in the gross income. It also caters for the definitions of the components, the vested component, savings component, and the retirement component. It also gives the allocation of this amount, how they actually going to work. It's 1/3 and 2/3. There are also, Chair, the consequential amendments, because currently we've got these different vehicles for individuals. So the amendments, some of the amendments on the clause 1, they relate to the current vehicles on pension fund, pension preservation fund, provident preservation fund, and retirement fund. So, and then the last thing as well, Chair, maybe amongst others, it also talks to the individual who's ceasing to be a South African tax resident after 1 March 2021. Basically, that's how it is, Chair, clause 1.
All right. Can we pause there? Members, any questions on clause 1? No. I think it's straightforward. And we'll get time before Tuesday evening to go through it line by line on our own. The point is that members must intervene at the end of each clause if you have any questions of clarity. Right. Go on, my friend.
And then clause 2, please go down good level. Clause 2, okay, just one up. Clause 2 basically ensures that the annuities for the retirement components are treated the same as the current annuities. I think that's clause 2 on section 10. Then clause 3 basically deals
Can you
with
deal with the sub-clauses as well, please, Ben? Because, you know, these clauses are very long. Just what sub-clauses say. Do you get it? Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, because now, okay, sub-clause 2, now at the moment, actually, so the 2A, we're deleting the or on sub-clause 2A, as well as in sub-clause in clause B as well. We're adding or. So then C, that's the amendment that actually ensures
No, my brother, can I just raise something, right? See,
Yeah.
I think this is unfair on you because, you know, you're new to the committee and we appreciate that, right? You see, we don't have the Income Tax 1962 Act before us. The idea isn't you telling us we change the and to the or and so on. What's the point you're making? Why is that relevant? That's all we need to know. Because otherwise we'll have to have the Income Tax 1962 and all the amendments effected to it since then and have this. This is impossible, right? So just make the political point, the policy point, if you know what I'm trying to say. I think it's very unfair on you. I should have met with you over the phone beforehand and discussed this with you on how to approach it. So I apologize. We didn't, you know, we forgot for a moment that, you know, we have new young people, which we appreciate because we're tired of seeing the same old faces, especially one Momonyat, as good as he is. You know, I hope Matthew is listening. But anyway, no, I'm joking, Matthew. Go ahead, please. Yeah, you get the point. It's not easy. Look, if you can't do it, it's fine. It's our job as the members to read every line before we vote on the bill. Right. Go ahead, though, if you can help us. Do you understand? Otherwise, we have to get the Income Tax Act and find out what exactly it is. That's too technical for us. Just deal with the policy issues and how the clauses here affect, impact, you know, how the clauses implement the policy issue.
Okay, no, thanks, Chair. I'm going to try now. Okay, on
our staff, by the way, goes through the bill. Esther does, and Poppy and Frank Jenkins, who's in the legal side, they go through. Obviously, they're not going to look at every amendment to check that. That'll be impossible for them to do and unfair. But they will also go through it clause by clause before Tuesday. Okay, good.
Okay. No, Chair, yes. Oh, basically, Section 10C is an exemption of non-deductible annuities. So because now we're introducing this new funds, so we are trying to align them with the current provisions of the Income Tax Act.
Okay, fine.
Yes. So basically, that's what we're trying to do now. And then on clause 3, clause 3, basically, we are trying to deal with the transfers between funds. So that they are taxable, and then we're also going to give them an exemption under the 4th schedule on clause 7. So basically, clause 2 is just how we deal with the transfers between funds.
Yeah, that's helpful. Can I ask a question? Members, come in if you have any. Now, this 30,000 rand, right? Or 10%, right? How will that be taxed? Say if I want to take the 30,000 out, right? How much of that will come to me and how much will go to SARS?
Because now it works depending on the specific case, Chair, then SARS will also look at it and then using the different rates, and then and whatever the portion is, then you get whatever the amount.
All right. So in other words, there's no, like, you can't give me, or you can come back on Tuesday after conferring with SARS. Can you maybe let us know what's like a ballpark figure? So for example, I know you're going to say, well, it depends what you're earning and all that, right? Yeah.
Yes.
So maybe it's a stupid question. But let's say you are a worker and, you're earning 10 rands, right? And then you can take 3 rands, right?
Yes.
Now, if you're a worker earning 30 rands and you want to take 30%, you will take 10 rands. So the percentage tax you pay on the 3 rands and the percentage tax you pay on the 10 rands will be different. Is that correct? Are you following?
Yes,
It
yes,
depends.
yes.
Yeah, it depends, right? So there's no standard percentage, right? In other words, whether a worker is earning 10 rands or taking from that part, the first part, 10 rands, or whether they're taking 2 rands, there's no like overall percentage of how much taxes they will have, right? Right, okay. I'm trying to find out, yeah. You know what the subtext of this question is? In other words, if you're quite poor and you desperately need 30,000 rands, I suppose an abstract question, right? I'm trying to work out, if you take 5,000 rands from a poor worker, that's a lot of amount. He's got 25,000 rands instead of 30,000 rands. And how many workers are going to understand? Matthew, maybe you want to come in at the end. How many workers are going to understand when they get the money that, they haven't got 30,000, but they've got 25,000? That's the thing that's worrying me, I personally, I don't know about this. Look, this is too complex an area for me, at least. You know what? I don't know how it's done, but ideally you should just give the workers what money they're expecting, and the taxes issues must be dealt with when, they retire or they're retrenched. That's all I would prefer, but I haven't thought it through. Let me mull over it. I'm speaking for myself. I don't know whether anybody agrees with me, even in the ANC, right? It's just a thought that occurred to me now. Anybody got, hey, Dennis, you got a big mouth, right? Oh, France is here. I was about to ask, why is SARS not here? And there it is. Dennis, shut up, please. There's no need for you to say anything. We know you're an expert, but we got a super expert here, France. Always coming to the rescue of this committee and me personally on issues dealing with constituents. Right, France.
Thank you, Chair. And good morning to the Honourable Chair and Honourable members. So just remember, when you made your contributions to the pension fund, you would have gotten a deduction at your marginal tax rate. So let's take your example of the worker at the bottom end of the earnings scale. You would have gotten essentially an 18% tax savings when you made your contributions. When you withdraw the amount, you get taxed at the marginal rate. So let's again assume that you're a worker at the bottom end of the rate scale, then you would pay income tax at 18%. Now that presumes that you have income. If you have no income whatsoever, then obviously you would still fall under the tax threshold and you would pay no tax. On the flip side of the coin, if you are a well-off worker and you are at the top end of the tax scale and you decide you need 30,000 Rand for a quick trip to Sun City or some other entertainment venue, and you take your 30,000 Rand, then you will pay 45% tax on that withdrawal.
It's high, eh? Yeah, on 30,000, eh? Wow. Look, obviously richer people must pay more tax. That's not an issue in France. But are you saying that if it's 45%, that means the guy or the woman, or they apply for 30,000 and they'll end up with what? I can't add and subtract, right? That's why I chair finance, needless to say. That's how the ANC operates. Now, what's that? You'll get what? 16,500 out of 30,000. France, am I understanding you correctly?
Correct. For someone who's not good at maths, that was well done. That is correct.
Wow, that's a lot, eh?
Correct. But again, when that person made their retirement contribution that year and got a
I know all of
deduction,
that, right? But the person who gets that money, my friend, doesn't know all of that. And even if he or she does, or they do know, they're going to, feel cheesed off. All right, fine. That's the way it is. I'm not complaining, but when you think of poorer people, I must pay those taxes. I don't have an issue with my salary level at MPs, chairs, and so on. But yeah, okay, fine. Frans, that's very helpful. Dennis, there's no need for you, right? Butt out unless you want to say something. I see Matthew wants to say something. Okay.
The chair, I also only say something because the chairperson asked me if any thoughts. Look, we had a lot of discussions, Chair, on the tax issue. Obviously, we take the stance that no one likes taxes, even employees of SARS don't like taxes. But the necessary, necessity and necessary evil of life. If you don't have taxes, the state won't have money to provide public services. But we were, had a lot of discussion, Chair, because we were worried that, as you were hinting, that does not erode the value of what relief workers would receive. We do appreciate, as Frans is saying, that there's a tax incentive for you to save, and of course, when you withdraw, there's a tax disincentive or reclaiming of that tax money. That's the logic of it. Our understanding, Chair, that the essence of the change is that we're moving from a flat 18% tax deduction when you withdraw. It'll now be linked to the personal income tax rate, and the pros and cons to that. I think on a philosophical basis, if we're moving to a more progressive tax regime, then one can't fault that because the rich should pay the greater share, etc., etc. But of course, yeah, it's a mixed bag. But we've accepted it. I think, but the last thing, Chair, is that on the immediate relief, that's where I think it became most relevant, as you're hinting. Because let's say, for example, a worker receives 30,000 rand on the 1st of September, the cap. How much cash would they take home? I think it'll be roughly about, if they're in the 18% tax bracket, which most workers would be, it'll be about 24,000 rand, and I think 24,400 rand roughly, I think, if my mathematics is not too suspect. So there is that, kind of about almost 5,600 or whatever tax deduction. So that's also why we had said Chair, but we've accepted that we lost this fight and we have to move on because of time pressures. That's why we had pushed for a 50,000 rand cap to give workers a bit more relief and also to kind of cover for the tax deductions. But because we're 5 minutes to midnight, because of the pending elections, hard deadline, because of the September deadline, we accept. Let's move on from the 30,000 rand and accept it. I think it's manageable, but yeah, it is a source of irritation. But we've tried to explain lastly to workers that look, no one likes taxes, but it's taxes which pays our nurses, our teachers, it's taxes which puts police officers in our streets. So it's a part of a necessity of life. But yeah, thanks, Chair.
Thanks for that. One correction. Even employees of SARS don't like paying tax. That can't apply to Frans Thomasek, right? He springs out of bed enthusiastically on the day he has to pay his taxes. So, France is excluded from that thing of yours. It's too generic. Okay, Nhlanhla, next, please.
Hi, Chair. There's a hand from Mr. Ryder.
Mr. Ryder, you're not necessarily
you keep asking me for comments and then shutting me up. So I thought, let me say something quickly. Yeah.
Well, you're the expert in the committee.
No, I do just think that it is incumbent on all role players to take on some sort of education process, and I think the insurance companies, employers, and organized labor as well. Everyone really needs to ensure that people are as well informed on this as they possibly can be, because I think the first thing we need to say is that there is going to be an erosion of later in life benefits in order to achieve a short-term gain, as it were, and there's a tax cost to that. But so people must go into such transactions with their eyes wide open. But again, looking at the necessity why this was brought about, I do think that people are often willing to make a short-term or make a longer-term sacrifice in order to just get through the current situation. So I think the tax implications are noted. No, as you say, it's never lacquer to give away your money that you consider to be yours. But yes,
the fact is that government will always take its cut wherever it is in the transaction. The sliding scale and the fact that taking out a lump sum will probably put you in a higher tax payment rate in the short term than you would have paid if you waited and took out your measured amounts when they become due. I suppose that's perhaps a premium being paid for the benefit of having quick access to the funds before you actually intended. Before it was actually intended, sorry.
Are you done? Dennis, you're over.
Yes, I'm done.
Okay, no, that's helpful. Look, basically, I think what Dennis is saying is helpful, right? We need education, right, from ASISA and all these institutions that are relevant, but also a national treasury and maybe even COSATU, right? Because while I think we all agree richer people should pay more taxes and all that, and everybody must pay their fair share, even the worker earning 10 rands, you know, because it's a dire situation, hopefully, although Frans is right to say somebody might want to go to Sun City and all, but for most stressed workers, those with poorer incomes, I think it's a dire situation. So somehow it's like, although the principle is correct, it's like a bit harsh, I think, in this situation for them to pay the full tax. I hear you, Frans. And I just wondered whether that couldn't be deferred to, you know, when they retrenched or they retired. But I'm not going to pursue that further. I just think the responses are quite formidable. All I'm saying is that can the committee consider putting in its report the need for education, as Dennis says, and the relevant parties that must do that, you know, before 1st of September, obviously, well before it. But thank you very much. And it's helpful that you said that 50,000 was your first position because you were taking tax into account. I saw all that, but I didn't realize that it was, well, a major, one among many considerations was the tax issue. Okay, that's very helpful. Okay, Nhlanhla, can we go on, please?
Thanks, Chair. Okay, on clause 3, clause 3 and clause 4, Chair, are the ones that we're trying to fix that ASISA as well has raised now. The intra-transfers one that requires a active. But at the moment, as it stands, this one, we're dealing with the transfers between funds. And then we're saying we're taxing them, and then we're going to give an exemption under the 4th schedule. So the first one is that we are taxable, and then the clause 4 says we are exempt. But this one is also subject now to the 2024 RLEP proposals. So
Next,
it's subject
please.
to clause, and then clause 5. Clause 5 here, it's more about we're trying to include the savings withdrawal benefit in the definition of remuneration so that we can get our employees' tax there. And then clause 6 also is now, this one tries to ensure that what tax to be withheld from SARS. So SARS then will then tell the fund exactly this is the tax that they need to withhold. I think that's what clause 6 deals with. And then clause 7 also, it's more about the pay-as-you-earn withholding. So again here, SARS also trying to get tax on the savings component withdrawal. And then clause 8 is just a short tag.
Okay, thanks for that. Are there any other questions or comments, colleagues?
Well done to Mr. Padebe for a sterling job in spite of lack of support from the chair.
No, I was about to congratulate him. You haven't appeared before our committee before, but ignore Mr. Ryder, he's campaigning. He won't win any votes for having said that. Anyway, I'm not a relevant party in the elections in that sense. I mean, other senses, certainly. Look, basically, I think you've done very well in Nhlanhla. If I was your DG, I'd give you a performance bonus, really. Very well. You're very clear, very helpful. Thank you for that. Now, I suggest that we draw to a close because there's nothing more to say. Now, firstly, I think just to round up the process, I see there's something on the chat group. What does it say? Sorry. Chat says, CISA is present. Why you've afforded an opportunity? You have been afforded an opportunity by the very invitation here. Okay, so basically, look, firstly, it seems to me, unless I'm getting it wrong, that there's not much to do on this bill, right? So what we've agreed on is the CISA will, by 3 o'clock on Tuesday, give us the amendments to the present version of the bill, not the amendments they made to previous versions. Secondly, if they can't do it by 15:00, they must justify it, and we'll give them an extra day. Thirdly, even if they don't make the submissions by 15:00 on Tuesday, we're going through the bill, but we won't vote on it or anything, pending hearing from a CISA 24 hours later by Wednesday, 3 o'clock. I think the point we're agreeing on is that what Dennis said, right? That we need this education. There's something else that I forgot now. It's in my head somewhere. Esther, I'll think of it and send it to you about what we should put in the report. But in the meanwhile, while waiting for a CISA, does anybody from any party want to say anything about what should go into the report under observations and recommendations? Well, you've got up till Tuesday, 3 o'clock as well. You've got submissions. Otherwise, you can raise it in the evening meeting. Now, I'd like to suggest, colleagues, if this is acceptable, that we've gone through the bill. Can colleagues please read the bill so we don't go through it painstakingly, line by line? We just go through it as an overview. And then if we have to amend it now here, the 3 staff members will also assist. If they can let us know by 15:00 on Tuesday, whether they've got any proposals for amendments based on the discussion we had today or independent proposals that the committee could consider and agree or disagree with, please let us have it by 15:00. Having said that, I don't have anything more to say. Is the process acceptable? Right. Anybody wants to send us notes for the report, please send it to Nkululeko and myself, and we will process that. Good. Thank you, everybody. Thank you to CISA and Matthew on behalf of COSATU. Keep up. And do take the weekend off, DA, EFF, and and Freedom Front. What is this now? Chat, something in the chat. Chat.
Thank you, sir. Have a lovely weekend.
No. You have a lovely weekend. We're campaigning. In case it can assist in any educational. Yes, that's very good. Good. Thank you very much for that, Ms. Fanika. Right. Yeah. Okay. Opposition parties have a good weekend. ANC, you know what we have to do. Thank you very much. Bye then.